Welcome back, everybody, to another video in Principles of Sociology, Soc 201. This is the second installment of culture. So in the first installment on my video about culture, we talked about what exactly culture is and how society is connected to it. We also talked about the two main, quote-unquote, main types of culture: material, which is any physical object, as well as non-material culture, and we got into the 5 specific types of non-material culture. Language being one of the most important, as are norms. Each norm has at least one sanction that can be positive or negative. Then we also talked about values and beliefs. So those are the 5 right there for you. If you're confused or anything like that, please let me know. And in this video, we are going to explore the 5 types of culture. Now, I realize you're like, okay, well, material and non-material are 2 types of culture. Yes, they are. These ones are more dealing with the people of the culture and how that culture is formed. Please note that this is not in your textbook. It's from another textbook, but I believe that this gives you guys a little bit more information about culture to understand it a little bit better, especially for those of you who haven't been quote-unquote out into the world and have experienced different types of cultures. But I'm kind of going to go through this again, not in your text, but I think it will be good use of you guys to kind of understand it further. And this stuff pops up a little bit later on in our semester as well. Again, not in the textbook, just because of what I talk about. So hopefully it'll be of use to you guys. So again, just as a quick reminder, culture is the way of life for a group or society. Those customs, the knowledge, different behaviors. You kind of think about aspects regarding a funeral. Each society and each culture has a different aspect of the funeral process. Here in the US, you might have a viewing of some sort or a celebration of life. That's 2 different things, a funeral mass or something. In other cultures, you kind of just put the body and burn it, and that's kind of a little bit of a celebration of life thing as they move on. What happens to the body or what happens to you after you die, that kind of thing. That can all relate to culture. So the first type of culture that we're going to examine is called dominant culture. So, and this really helps for those of you who are kind of struggling with the conflict perspective a little bit. Remember, the conflict perspective is examining the inequalities that are occurring within a certain type of phenomenon. Regarding the dominant culture, this is the culture of the most powerful people in a society, and these powerful groups control the means that produce ideas. This is the dominant ideology that's kind of forced into a whole entire society. It's kind of what everybody kind of thinks about, because this is just a natural way that people are used to thinking. If you kind of think about being set in your own mind, because of the way that we do things, this is kind of what dominant culture is concerned about. So these cultural beliefs and practices help maintain a powerful social, economic, as well as political interests. So for those of you in politics, hopefully you can kind of connect things regarding that dominant ideology to politics. That's rather easy. I'm examining more social and economic stuff in this slide, but politics, you can easily connect it as well. And thinking about this conflict perspective, similar to how Marx had the 2 groups with the bourgeoisie up at the top influencing the workers, or the proletariat, as his terms kind of call out for. Similarly, the most powerful groups kind of control the means about how we get ideas and how we produce them. So there's a lot of power that's going on there, a lot of influence that we're examining. And this will pop up again when we discuss media and social media and just the aspects of media too. So for instance, one dominant ideology or dominant culture that we have is our work culture as Americans. You can examine it all throughout different societies and things like that, but specifically Americans, we are very focused on time, efficiency, and work. until we're just basically overrun, exhausted, and basically dead inside, really. You kind of see from this picture, this guy's just staring at his computer screen. He is so tired. He does not look well at all. He has a lot of energy pills, coffee to the max, and his diary is absolutely full. So, and it's nighttime and he's staring at a bright screen. So just that thought of being overworked, kind of being extended to over what you should be. It's a good thing to be challenged, but being challenged too much, perhaps because of shortages in hours or shortages in just the workforce or something like that. It's just basically a work kind of culture. You're not supposed to have any time for social activities. You're not supposed to have any time for yourself to relax at all. Mental health, we don't even know what that is in the work culture regarding this dominant ideology. And this can be tied to a lot of American values as well, so that's very connected as well. But that's just one example of a dominant ideology. The second and third ones are kind of connected a little bit to each other. The first one on this slide is what's called elite culture. So these are the cultures of the most valued members of society. So I like to call it the MVP culture, because whatever they do, whatever behaviors that they're doing, all of their actions are seen as positive, but us common quote unquote people are allowed to participate with these elite people, with these MVP culture areas. So regarding this elite culture, it's usually quite expensive, or it requires some knowledge, skills, or items that a lot of people lack, usually due to money. So if you kind of think of the phrase, whatever happens between closed doors, thinking about elite culture as whatever happens between the closed gates of the pearly mansions, as seen on the slide that kind of opened up the lecture for today. So, we don't really know exactly what's going on behind all these different, I think, of celebrities and what they're doing. However, when they act out on something, they donate a whole bunch of money for these kids, that's seen as really, really positive. However, when one of us does that, that's not seen as much. It's not in the news as much because they're a celebrity. In order to join this culture, it might be who you know, so being able to network with people, but it is usually requiring a lot of money, having some skills, or things like that. And then the third type of culture is one that we all participate in, I believe, in some way, shape, or form. That's popular culture. So if you're a fan of memes or songs or social media or anything like that, I kind of delves into popular culture. So this is culture that's mass produced and consumed. Most, if not all, people have access to it. And you can just basically think of the different songs, the different fads or trends that are on Instagram or TikTok or even on Reddit. You can kind of think about one timely thing that's going on right now is the whole thing with Wall Street. And it's a little bit of a challenging the dominant culture regarding Wall Street, as well as the popular culture that is on Reddit. So that's kind of a little bit of an interesting examination there. In addition to thinking about different memes, I like memes. So if you guys don't know this scene, this is a scene from Mean Girls, and it's just trying to figure out exactly who the new girl Kitty is. But there's Bernie and his mittens. So you had this whole phenomenon during President Biden's inauguration with Bernie wearing his homemade mittens, and that kind of just exploded into a whole meme, and lots of people were kind of reuniting. Didn't matter on their politics, but everybody really liked the Bernie memes, so I'm kind of continuing on with it. But that's an instance of popular culture too. The fourth type of culture is a subculture. So this one's a pretty easy one also to kind of understand, because it's basically a culture within a culture. So this culture is of a group whose lives are just a little bit tweaked, a little bit different than the mainstream quote-unquote group. And many of you have joined a subculture at this point and actually are in a subculture. You're in the subculture of SMC, as being students enrolled Southwestern Michigan University or college. So, and we have our own little subculture that's going on due to our unique offerings that we have, such as having on campus housing and all the different resources that we have as a college. In addition to, usually with subcultures, you can kind of think about it regarding ethnicity or what country you come from, that kind of thing. So like for me personally, we have a lot of potlucks in my subculture because that's kind of what our heritage is. We bring a lot of food together at major events. One person just doesn't bake everything or make everything. We host potlucks to celebrate birthdays or just accomplishments and things like that. Graduations in a pre-COVID world. So you can think about heritage as well. Different characteristics also can form subculture, such as the deaf community. They're a little bit different from others in that, you know, they have sensory adaptations that need to be done, and so they can be also considered a subculture. When we get into our deviance chapter, you guys will read an article about the deaf community a little bit more. Regardless of what subculture you're in, you're still operating within this overall culture. So a subculture can kind of be, if this is your main culture, a subculture is still within here. So you're still in there somehow. So you're still operating, overall culture is still kind of influencing you, so to speak, that kind of thing, you're still within it. Alternatively though, you can have a counterculture. So instead of being within like a subculture, if this is the kind of dominant culture, you're either kind of like over here, or you can be all the way over here as well. So this is a culture of a group whose lives are very different from the rest of the society. It could be because of the values that they're trying to promote, and they often reject that dominant culture that's going on. The same geographic bounded area is applied, but they really don't like how other people are living. So this is where our social change really can kind of come in regarding counterculture. So if you think about the civil rights movement or the women's suffrage movement, those can be classified a little bit as counterculture, because at the time they were going against that dominant thought that Americans shouldn't have rights or women shouldn't have rights, that kind of thing, you know, separate but equal. However, you know, we need integration, that kind of thinking. They do not operate within the overall framework of the culture. And one good example of this is the different types of cults that you can kind of examine. We'll get into cults more when we talk about religion, but just remember that countercultures are just cultures of a group whose life is very different. Alrighty, so this was a quick video about the 5 different types of cultures regarding social groups. And then the next video, we'll go back to the textbook and talk about more of the us versus thems and kind of some of the cons regarding culture. As a reminder, you got your research project part 1 due on Wednesday, and then Sunday is discussion board 3 and quiz 3. And I'll see you next time.